If I tether myself anywhere, I am limiting my creative potential. And so is anybody else who's doing this with the same thought process.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
Hey everyone, we have a very good friend of mine on the podcast today. I say this with a huge smile because she is a bright, amazing being. Katie Anderson. So first of all, she's my friend. She is so many different things, and I could rattle off. I will share a couple of the things that she is on paper, but she just, when you listen, she just is a teacher in life, and she's teaching herself constantly. So it's fascinating to watch. She is the founder of Save Water Co. She is a 30 under 30 Forbes list maker. Fancy pants. I mean, she's won awards from Cartier, global awards, and just an incredible female entrepreneur. But she's just on this life journey of learning and discovery. Recently, she took up a new hobby where she writes these spoken words. It's just crazy. She's very good, and she does perform one of them, so make sure you hang on. We go everywhere with this conversation. It's so just yummy to interview someone that you know well. There were no stones unturned, and we go deep, but we also have some pretty tactical tips. There was a point where Katie was working, and I was actually introduced to Katie through Susie Batiste, who has been on the show, and you've heard me talk a lot about. She's my mentor, my friend Tor. And so at one point, Susie saw Katie working so hard, and she stopped her and said, well, what are you doing? And Katie said, well, I'm working. And she's like, but on what? Like, literally, what are you doing? And she told her, and Susie said, why? And then she kind of walked away, and Katie had this moment where she realized there's so much of what she was doing that she didn't need to be doing. And I'm just going to tease it with that, and you'll have to listen to the full context, but it changed her entire day structure. It changed her lifestyle by what happened next. So if that isn't a tease, I don't know what is. I can't say enough about my fellow wild Mustang friend here, Katie Anderson. We tackle the most taboo topics on the Why Not Now show. Oftentimes, you're hearing guests share things they've never shared before. In the spirit of things we don't typically talk about, you should know that the Why Not Now show is supported by Poopery, the original before you go toilet spray. It's magic. My friends at Poopery have literally taken the smell out of you-know-what. This pure blend of essential oils stops bathroom odor before it begins. Visit poopery.com, and Why Not Now listeners get 20% off with code WHYNOTNOW. That's all one word. And you can hear the story about Poopery in our interview with founder Susie Batiste. That's Why Not Now, episode 28. Poopery is also available at Target. Katie, welcome to the Why Not Now show. I am thrilled to have you on. It's so fun to do this with friends that are close because it just turns into a conversation. But let's kick this conversation off in the way we always do. Yeah. So can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you asked yourself, why not now?
Yeah. So I even smile at you asking me that question. And I take myself back to this moment where I was living in Houston at the time in my townhome. And I remember a friend calling me and asking me if I would be willing to start my own business. And a little context behind what prompted that question was I was working for a company where the risk I had taken with them was 100% commission, which meant that I took no base salary. And the agreement was that I would make a percentage of each sale that I made. And so the risk was all on me, if that makes sense. So I had worked with them for almost 4 years and had gotten to a point where I was making all this money. I had all this freedom and flexibility to be able to travel, and I was not fulfilled. I did not feel happy. And that part sort of took me by surprise because I had always been taught that, freedom and flexibility, travel, money, these things are what happiness is about. So to actually achieve that for myself and feel the way that I felt was surprising. And so I ended up leaving that company and wandered around. I say wandered around for a couple of months, mostly doing introspective questioning of what is it that I really wanted to do with my life. And I was approached by multiple people to either start a business with them and or even get equity in their company. And what I really saw for myself was each of those avenues was only a shinier current situation. And for me, what I was really seeking was this ability to have what I would call unbridled creativity. So being able to have my own ideas and my own thought processes and the empowerment to act upon those in whatever capacity I wanted to. And each of the other opportunities I was being presented with, I saw that in some way, even though it looked better than my current situation, I was still traveling down the same path. And so when I was sitting in my townhome with this question that a friend asked me, that's when it really hit me of, I can sit here and ask myself, is there a better time in my life? Could I have more money in savings? Could I have a bit more information about XYZ? And it's really the why not now moment of why not now? I can sit here and convince myself of all these different reasons to not do it now. And for me, I often say the moment I accepted the humility of the decision I was about to make is the moment that I had the courage to make it. And what I mean by that is when my friend asked me that question, I allowed myself to explore every potential outcome of making this decision, including the worst of the worst, and also including the best of the best, and accepting all of those as potential outcomes for myself. And then all of a sudden the door opened to do it. And so my answer was yes. And my life has changed ever since. I mean, my trajectory has been exponentially different since saying yes. So I would say that was a significant why not now moment that has transformed my life.
Yeah, huge. And what you just said about having what you perceived to make you happy and what you knew historically was supposed to make you happy. You had the money and you had maybe the success recognition, but then you were still empty. There was still something missing. And then being presented with even shinier opportunities, which,
yes.
Oh man, tempting, right? It's like,
it was tempting. The pull was there. Yes.
Yeah. But then again, what kind of going back to your words of you were seeking unbridled creativity, which is a big statement, but it's also in business. What a powerful combination. But also I think that seems to a lot of people really unattainable, but you've done it. So how did that look? What were the very first steps? So your friend asked you this question, and then what? You said yes.
And then what happened? The starting story of the company is actually, it's a really good one. So I'll go into it and you can tell me if you want a little bit more details. Essentially what happened though, once I said yes, the momentum that was behind that yes was extraordinary. Everything went very fast. And that's been one of my lessons around the power of the yes, of what's really wanting to happen in a person's life. And I can speak especially to my own that the amount of momentum that was behind that yes, like what was wanting to happen was so significant that everything went exponentially fast after that. So after saying yes, I formed the entity, and then there were two guys that I went to school with back in college, and immediately their names came to mind as far as who did I want to bring on this ship with me. Now, at the time, my company is called Save Water Co., and we do water conservation. So in theory, I should probably want someone with expertise in water, maybe expertise in plumbing. And why that's important is these two guys, one of them was a principal of a school at the time, and the other one was running a tree orchard for a green company out of California. So I often joke that a salesperson, a tree farmer, and a principal of a school kicked off a water conservation company. So it's like, this doesn't really make much sense at all.
But why did you choose them?
They were the two in my gut. I just knew it. There was nobody else. And I called them and I said, hey, here's the deal. I'm starting a water company. I know that you know nothing about this industry, and that does not matter to me. You're it though. You're supposed to be with me. And again, I know from the outside looking in, it's like nothing about this makes sense. But in my knowings of knowings internally, I just knew that they were the ones that I wanted with me. So they did. They quit their jobs, moved to Houston at the time. And it was funny because I said, what is the lowest amount of money that you can make to survive? And they told me, and I was like, great, I'm going to pay you a little less than that. And what was funding this whole deal was that I had saved up $75,000 of my own money. And this $75,000 was going to pay for me, my salary, these two guys' salary, and also the first project that we did. So I was, in my opinion, it's actually risking everything I had on a situation that really looked bleak as far as like knowledge and expertise here going to go into this venture. So they moved to Houston. We were starting it was a 218 apartment unit project in just north of Dallas. And the way I set it up with this owner was that I will pay for the entire implementation of your project myself. And the only thing I ask is that whatever savings I generate off of your water bill, that you split that with me. And if I don't save you anything, then you never pay me. So I created there was no lose for him. So it was a way of getting him to say yes. All the risk, though, is on me, because if I don't save him anything, then I would lose all of my savings. I basically did a construction project on this commercial piece of real estate, and my money would be gone. So that was the scenario that I set up with the owner.
How did you know it would work? How were you that confident to offer this?
It's such again, kind of looking back, Amy Jo, the wildest part is like, I look back at this version of me, and like this older, wiser version of me is almost impressed by this younger version of me. Cause I also am kind of asking myself the same question of like, how on earth did you think that was all okay? And how did you also know that was going to work? And all I can say is that like, in every moment of our lives, there is this deep internal voice inside of us. And all I was doing at the time was following that with as little judgment as possible. So how do I know? I don't know, other than to say that voice at the time was all knowing, and I was willing to follow it. And I think that at the end of the day, that's really what life is asking us to do, is just trust and follow that.
Yeah. Oh, and I can't wait to dive into that more too, because this was prior to all of your Hendrix work, right? This was Katie's big personal development season. Okay. So, it's just so cool to me, because it's like you were following it. It became more clear and maybe surfaced intellectually, but Yeah.
And fortunately for me, my parents were also, since I was a young kid, were always encouraging me to follow my own intuition. So I can see how I got a head start by my parents starting me at a young age of going, you have the answers inside of you. You have the knowing inside of you. So I was already sort of on this path of like, what am I hearing on the inside? And then being willing to follow that. So that was fortunate for me.
And so just to touch back on one minor big detail, what you were doing prior in sales with your 100% commission job was in a similar / potentially same industry as what you ended up creating with Save Water Co. or no?
It was, yes.
Okay.
So I was in the water conservation industry, and basically a part of what happened was I kept coming to the table with different ideas that I had and felt as if, kept getting told no. And so that's where my creativity was really taking a damper, was that I had these ideas that felt, really energized inside of me. And then I wasn't able to execute or take action upon them. And for me, it only took getting told no, like for so long, to where I felt like this defeated, I wasn't able to create. And that's one of the things I realized that I so sought after in life, was to be able to follow up on my own creativity.
And that's so valuable for listeners who, oftentimes people's why not nows are wanting to pivot, redream in terms of their career, their life, but they think that their career will be doing that, changing the thing that's not quite there. And we oftentimes misdiagnose what will make us happy. But in your case, and if someone's listening, it wasn't that you didn't like what you were doing. You just didn't feel that you could fully express and implement ideas. So if people are listening and you do love your industry, but you just are feeling dampered, why not consider going out on your own and doing it your own way? And it's amazing. And the creative side is what brought the currency, not financially, but like the full on energy and love for what you do even more. So fast forward, how long ago was this, by the way? So how many years?
This was 5 years ago.
Okay. So 5 years ago, you started
5 years ago.
the principal and your tree orchard guy.
Yeah, pretty much. And I installed the first project we ever did. So I was actually the maintenance person on the project, fixing toilets and showers and drips and leaks, which was a huge part in realizing that everything I thought I even knew about water conservation was pretty much thrown out the window. And we essentially started from a clean slate. So the other invitation and gift of starting my own company was recognizing that just because an industry is doing it one way doesn't mean it's the way. That I have a completely different viewpoint, and what would happen if I put my own viewpoint onto a specific field or a specific industry? What else could be possible here that's being completely missed by everyone else, even in the industry? And so we have, 45 employees now. We've implemented over 55,000 apartment units, and we average a savings of 50 to 55% on every project that we touch. We've saved over 3 billion gallons of water across the board. We also, for every gallon of water you save a portion of electricity that it would have taken to get the water pumped to the property. So we've deferred over 10 million pounds of carbon from entering the atmosphere. And then we also recycle all the waste on our projects. So even the old toilets that we take out, we'll break them down and send them they become road aggregate. So we've deferred over 1,000 tons from going to the landfills. And I feel especially proud about the landfill deferment because when we did our first toilet replacement on a project is when I learned that porcelain is not recycled. So every piece of porcelain across the United States gets taken to a landfill and it's not degradable. And this is where I talk about how fun creativity can be, is when my team said, well, we just took them to the landfills, and I pushed for innovation. I said, what else is possible here? And come to find out, porcelain is the equivalent to limestone. Limestone's the main aggregate in concrete mix. So the idea was sprung that maybe a concrete maker would take our waste. And so there we go. Now, all of a sudden, we're almost a full cycling sustainability company of something that was not even currently done in the market.
Incredible. What an amazing creative way to have a do good, do well company. And you had to figure it out step by step, but you didn't have this in your mind necessarily fully baked when you set out to do it, because you didn't know all these things, like even porcelain not being recyclable. Wow.
No, I would say that at the very beginning, what I had was the idea. As far as, what it was going to take to even get to where we are today, there's no way. There's no way I could have predicted. I often say it's like starting and running a business is every day you wake up and you do what you can. And just when you lay your head down at night, ask yourself, do I feel good about all the choices and decisions I made? And if there's a wobble in there, then I'd look at that and the next day, do what you can.
So, okay. So I have so many places I want to take this conversation, because we've spent quite a bit of time together, but rarely are we ever talking business. I mean, I knew conceptually what you do, but I also know that you have created a day-to-day lifestyle where you don't seem like you are working on the business a ton, which is brilliant. I mean, I know you work hard and you've done a lot to build this. And by the way, I want to talk about Cartier too, and the awards that you've gotten and acknowledgments and this crazy stuff. But it's magic in a way to me, like mysterious magic. How you aren't working all the time. And so I remember, and we met through Susie Batiste, who listeners have heard from on the podcast before and know who she is, of course. And I remember you saying at one point, Susie sat you down and said, "What are you doing? Why are you working so hard?" And then like this magic happened, and all of a sudden you are going to Hawaii tomorrow for 3 weeks and you travel the world. I mean, gosh, every other moment, Katie's in a different country, like swimming with whales or riding horses in Egypt or camels or whatever. But I say this because there was a big shift, wasn't there, at some point where you changed the game for yourself? And what happened?
There was. Yes, I love Susie. I was laughing with her the other day and telling her how there have been many pivotal moments in my life that have come from her at some point stopping in the middle of whatever is happening and looking at me and asking that question of, what are you doing? And for whatever reason, it was always just the perfect tone, delivery, and moment to get underneath and inside of me. It was like a pattern interrupt enough for me to actually really get the question. And so one of the moments, I was sitting in her home and I was working on, work stuff on a computer, and she's walking by and she stopped and she looks at me, she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm working." And she's like, "Yeah, but on what?" And so I listed off a few things and she goes, "Why?" And I just,
you're like, shit.
Yes. And then she just walks off and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Frickin' Buddha.
That's yes. Like what? And so I looked at everything I was doing, and then that was a pivot for me. So I started identifying all of the things that I was currently doing that were figured out that somebody else could do, and I delegated. And then I started looking at what was left. And what I realized on what was left was I had convinced myself that I was the only one who could do this. Mm-hmm. And I saw the flaw, that I am chaining myself based on maybe something to do with I need to feel valuable. Mm-hmm. I need to feel needed, for whatever internal belief systems I had going on. I had created certain things that I was needed and necessary for. And so I started looking at those and going, okay, how can it be that I am not the only person that's needed or necessary for these things? And that took getting outside of my own pen that I had created for myself and shifting and changing the perception of these certain tasks and getting them to where that they could be. And I have now approached the business with the same mindset. So even if there's somebody else inside of the company that it's not even me, that I see them attached to a particular task, that when I ask them, how is it that this could be trainable to somebody else? and they start to give me a very similar type of answer that I was giving myself when Susie asked me the question, I know that it's an opportunity to go in and do the same thing. So the idea is that it's like, I don't want to make myself that special. And I don't want anybody else to be that special. It's not that we aren't special. It's just that knowing that when I do create that for myself, I am limiting myself. And what I really wanted whenever is unbridled creativity, which to be unbridled means I have to be able to freely move. If I tether myself anywhere, I am limiting my creative potential. And so is anybody else who's doing this with the same thought process. So that was a big pivot moment for me that I not only approach myself with, but I approach everybody in the company with as well.
That's big. Don't make yourself that special. So what are you uniquely qualified to do, Katie, when it comes to your business? You're like 0. No, but clearly you set the culture, you set the vision, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you know, I'm a checkpoint. So again, like this person, if I see them tethering themselves, like I come in and I invoke that out and start asking wonder questions. You know, I have a lot of the vision. So the ideas and the vision of what's possible come to me. I'm a big person for, you know, if people are stuck or the company feels stuck in a certain area, you know, the first place I look is myself. Where am I stuck? Where am I limiting myself? And how is this actually manifesting itself into the business? So I'd say that that's actually, you know, I'm the owner of the company. And with that comes a responsibility and also a direct reflection of what's happening inside of it. So I'd say if there's anything that's unique to me, it's self-responsibility and radical, like looking at myself of how am I causing or creating what I see inside of this company that's not only affecting me, it's affecting others. So I'd say that that's my unique responsibility.
Okay. Love it. Absolutely love it. And I want to preface some of this too with the fact that I touched on the Hendricks LAT program briefly, but so in the past, Dr. Gay Hendricks has been a guest on the show before too. And, you know, everyone's heard me talk a lot about him as well as Susie going through LAT as well. What has been your biggest takeaway from studying under Katie and Gay Hendricks? I know that's kind of a big one, but
it's a big question. So the first thing that comes to mind though is solidifying my internal knowing and trust of my body. And so it's, you know, I was gifted with parents that encouraged me to listen to myself and what's going on the inside of me. So I had a big leap there. And the one, oh my goodness, just one, Gay and Katie Hendricks have impacted my life. I could talk for hours about that. And one of the things for sure is that sort of initial knowing, it's like they seeded it. They created an environment where I was able to seed that even deeper within myself, if that makes any sense.
Yes. And just knowing what I know about you, it's not like your parents who actually are the originators of watering the seed, it seems, of your internal knowing, but they were not hippy dippy necessarily. Like you didn't grow up in woo woo world, right? You're pretty logical, linear, like, you know, have and we have a similar, I think I just visualize you and me kind of having maybe a similar childhood of we didn't have much, but we had everything type thing. And, you know, small town, I lived in a trailer. You know,
I was in a trailer.
Yep.
My hometown had 165 people. Very deep East Texas country. You know, my dad wears Wranglers every day, has an adorable mustache, very practical about life.
Didn't he create an airplane out of like sticks or something?
Basically, my dad, you know, I love to tell a portion of his story where he has a 9th grade education and has built 9 airplanes out of our backyard.
Ugh, love it.
And he doesn't even know how to send a text message. So it's not like he got on the internet and like looked this up or even read books on how to do this. And I asked him once, I was like, he goes, I just trust my internal knowing. It's like, if somebody else can do it, I know I can do it. It doesn't matter where they are in the world. It's just knowing that somebody else can do it is enough for him to go forward.
I seriously can't wait to meet him. I can't believe I still haven't met him yet. He's like a little mentor that's like from afar.
Yes.
Oh, I just love it. So I say that because I think a lot of times people say, "Oh, we're getting into the body conversation and body intelligence," and maybe sometimes for those who, I definitely have been this way not too long ago, where I'm just like, yeah, I kind of get it, but I'm not fully bought in. It's not like you were brought up in a crystals and meditation type of scenario, but
no, my parents do not meditate. My mom was a teacher. Again, my dad was a car mechanic. We grew up in East Texas, very just a country family, very practical. Again, just no hippies. I went to California once when I call California hippie once whenever I was younger. We did a road trip over there. No, it was just my dad and mom always just taught being practical and problem solving. And both of them encouraged real-time problem solving. So one thing that they taught me was if there's a problem in front of you, trust that the tools to solution it are within an arm's reach. And that your only job is to stop judging the tools. So if you look over and you've got a duct tape hammer to use that's, 30 years old, don't judge that hammer. Pick it up as fast as you can and start going to town. Versus this idea that like we look over and then we judge the hammer. It's like, oh, it doesn't really look the way that I want it to. Like one thing I learned about my parents is like it doesn't work that way. Like my dad to build his airplane, like he wasn't waiting to get the top-notch tool in his shop to be able to do it. He used what he had because he trusted that that's all he needed was what was in an arm's reach.
So resourceful. And so bringing it back around when you said, one of your biggest takeaways from learning and studying under the Hendricks brilliance of Gay and Katie was that you learned how to solidify your internal knowing and trust your body.
Yes.
And
I was able to go deeper within myself.
Something keeps coming up for me, and I don't remember if this was you or your friend that you introduced me to, but so I know I'm hopping, but I hop. Sorry, I think in bullet points. So Cartier. So can you tell everyone a little bit about kind of how it came to be and how you've been recognized by Cartier? And then was it you who had your final presentation in some country far away from here and it went blank?
So I'm the one where I love this. I'm the one.
I'm like, wait.
I'm the one where in the judging.
Right in the bathroom.
Judges,
oh, yes. Yeah. Can you tell that story?
Yes.
Okay. I'm like,
share the story.
Is that okay to share? Okay. First of all, set the scene. What's up with Cartier? I mean, from trailer park to Cartier, and your parents were there. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what was fun is the momentum of starting the company, a year after I started the company, I was chosen as one of Forbes 30 under 30 list makers, which Forbes does this search of what they call game changers in a particular industry. And I was chosen by them for the energy space. So that was cool. That was like 1 year after. Then 3 years after.
And you were how old? Not that it matters, but I think it gives people.
I was 29.
Okay.
Yeah, 29.
Okay.
And then 3 years after starting the company, at Cartier, everyone is likely familiar with, the jewelry brand, whom I am such a huge fan of, after especially going through the experience with them. So Cartier, the jewelry brand, about 15 years ago, was doing philanthropic work. So they were feeling a little unfulfilled, though, with the impact that they were investing into wasn't quite hitting at home with what it was that they wanted to create. So what they chose to do was build an arm within the company that was going to impact exactly what it was that they felt passionate about. For them, it was women-owned businesses, so women entrepreneurs doing social impact ventures that are also for-profit businesses. The for-profit was important to them because they wanted to do or work with companies that were self-sustaining. So every year since then, Cartier does a global search for women entrepreneurs doing social impact ventures, and they pick finalists. There's 6, now 7 regions across the world where they choose 3 finalists per region, and then they fly them to, at the time, It was France, then it went to Singapore, and this past year it was in the United States in San Francisco. And they have a week-long business competition where these women fly in, they compete against one another. There's a panel of judges, and then they choose a winner for each region. And that winner gets $100,000, a seat at the INSEAD Business School Social Entrepreneurship Program, and a business coach for a year. So I was nominated 2 to 3 years ago for this award for North America, and ended up being chosen as a finalist for North America. So Cartier flew me over to Singapore for this week-long business competition. I remember flying over at the time thinking like, it was just a couple of years ago where I was sitting in my house, townhome, contemplating, do I want to start my own company? And now I'm being flown across the world by one of the most prestigious brands to talk about my business and my imprint into the world. Like it was a level of validation that it was happy. I felt happy, to say the least.
Yeah. What a moment to have that realization, to stop and just take stock.
Yes. So what a learning journey that was. So I get over to Singapore, and the women were absolutely incredible. One of the gifts I got out of there was meeting the incredible women across the world who each of them had a unique social impact venture that they were passionate and putting into the world on a day-to-day basis that was so inspiring. So that was one of the gifts. Another gift that happened, which is what the story you're asking about, is so the morning of the judges, we had to do a 30-minute long presentation of which you could not go a second over. So the idea was that if you went a second over, you were disqualified. So the 30 minutes was very important, followed up by a 20-minute Q&A by the judges. So the morning of the presentation, I woke up decently nervous pretty early, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to practice my presentation to my room. And I start talking, and there's one slide in my presentation that says social impact over the last 2.5 years. And it had all of our major numbers on there, the amount of water we had saved, tonnage deferred, number of employees, et cetera. And something happened in that moment of that slide where I remember going, I'm most inspired by this slide. And I just had this well come through me where I started boohooing. And it was in a nanosecond. It's like I could see every moment in my life that I had chosen to go against societal wants or needs, or, it's like all the courageous choices I had made to land right there in that moment came to me at once. And I just was filled with this love and appreciation and gratitude for everything, and mostly of myself for having made those choices. And because I'd made those choices, this moment was even possible. And it took a lot of courage to do that. So I'm crying and crying, and the tears will not stop. I proceed to cry for an hour in my room. And it was such a moment of like, I feel like I've just won the competition. Like, if anything, if Cartier had just given me that moment of realization, it's like I'd had my head down so long that there was a moment of coming back out of that to even see what I had done. It was beautiful. Wow. So I go downstairs, and every person I see that I somewhat made of a connection with, I start crying again. And I had a coach at the time, Georgetta, whom I just love so dearly. And I told her, I go, Georgetta, I might get into this room and cry the entire time. I may not even be able to do the competition. And she said, if that's what wants to happen, then cry. Like, there's nothing else that's necessary to do. And I remember walking up thinking, at this point, I'd gotten my tears to calm down. My tears calmed down. And I come into the room, and so I'm breathing, and the judges start walking in. And about the time that they start settling down, one of them says, oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I thought, oh, that's a really great idea. So I get up and I go into the bathroom. And to add a little context here, the first slide of my presentation says possibility. And what I start with is a story about a boy. And the boy ends up being my dad. But what was important to me in this presentation, because they gave me a blanket presentation to go by, and I said, this is just all about numbers. And what's important for me is to share the story behind the inspiration of even walking this path. So I started my presentation with the story of boy, speaking about my dad. So fast forward, I'm in the bathroom, and I hear the judges start coming in, and then I hear one of them say, I sure hope these girls are interesting. And I remember sitting there, and it's like, I went from feeling like overwhelming gratitude to every hair on the back of my neck standing up in anger. And then I hear another judge go, "Shh, she's in here." And I just remember thinking, and so from inside the stall, I go, "I'll do my best." And it was, you could hear a pin drop in there. So I walk out of the stall. Nobody's looking at me. I wash my hands. I go to exit out, and Georgetta, my coach, is starting to come in, but she catches the look on my face, and I am not okay. And she reverses back out of there, and we start going down the hallway, and she's asking me what happened. And I'm like, "Georgetta, I am not okay. I am not okay." And so I told her what happened. And so she's looking at me in shock. And I said, I'm not okay. And I kept pointing to my insides because I was so shaky. And then I kept going out loud, like, "Get it together, Katie, get it together, get it together. Like, you can do this. You can do this." And Georgetta says, "The presentation's in 3 minutes." And I mean, I'm almost in a sweat. I am so upset. So I'm trying to breathe, calm myself down. I go to the room, and I'm unable to look at anybody. So I turn around, drink some water, and internally I'm just repeating over and over, "Just get it together. You can do this. You know the start of your presentation." So I turn around, and someone from Cartier is there, and they said, "Katie, you can begin your presentation." And I'm standing at the front of the room. All of these judges are staring at me, and nothing comes out of my mouth. Nothing. And in my head, I go, "Just start talking. Just start. You know the first line. Just start talking." Nothing. It is pure silence. I cannot speak. The only thing I can get out is I turn back to the Cartier person and I say, "I can start my presentation?" And she says,
Yes.
"Yeah."
So does that minute of silence count toward my 30, or are we like resetting?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I'm like so excited to hear the rest of this. Okay, keep going.
So still nothing. I cannot speak. There are no words. And again, I'm just repeating to myself, "Just start talking." And then it's as if I had an out-of-body experience, because what I saw was what I was about to start saying was not the start of my presentation. And so then what I, in nanoseconds, saw was every potential outcome from what I was about to say, meaning they could ask me to leave the room. Maybe I get through my presentation, but there's no way they're choosing me. Maybe I get through my presentation and then they ask me to leave the room. Meanwhile, my parents are on a flight over to Singapore. My entire company knows that I'm here. All of my friends know that I'm here. It's like, I go back home and they say, "Katie, how did we do?" And I'm like, "We lost." And they're like, "How or why?" And it's like, because of what I said. So I was just, in nanoseconds, all of this was happening. And then all of a sudden, everything got super silent. And what started coming out of my mouth, I was hearing for the first time also, if that makes any sense. So I said, "I've had a really emotional morning. I was in my room practicing my presentation, and I came to a slide about social impact, and I felt overwhelmed with gratitude and happiness. And then there was this moment in the bathroom where someone said, 'I sure hope these girls are interesting. And I'm curious, who said that?'" And it was, if you could see me right now, it's like hot potato, like square me in the seats. And all of a sudden they point to the judge that said it. And so I calmly turn toward her and everything calms down. And she looks at me and she says, "Oh, Katie, I just meant interesting. Like, I'm jet lagged. Like, I want to stay awake." And I just looked at her calmly. And then everything got really silent. And I said, "That's unfortunate to hear, because I find that whenever I listen to someone's story and I actually hear their story, it's always interesting." And then the word possibility, the first slide, caught my attention out of my eye. And I remember looking over it and I was like, I look at that word, possibility, and I know it to be the very essence of my story, as I find it to be the essence of everyone's story. And so I'd like to share a story about a boy. And then it took off into my presentation. And I remember exiting out of that room, and Georgetta looked at me and she was like, that was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And I remember looking at her going like, what just happened? Like, it was like, and for me, Amy Jo, so many gifts came out of that. And one of the ones that I want to share right now is that if I had any doubt about would I be willing to honor my own authenticity, regardless of likability, acceptability, or money being on the line, I just showed myself I would. So I almost came out of there with a stronger backbone.
Oh, what an amazing gift you gave to yourself, and trusting yourself to be brave, and how that probably carries through in everything you've done forward from there, personally, professionally. It's just what an amazing
Oh yes. And
gift.
even that night, you know, a lot of my friends that were there asked, you know, oh, Katie, how did you do? Do you think you won? And I was like, oof, I don't know. It's a really solid question. So then that night when my name came across the screen and I won, it was like, that was also a gift, right? That there's this belief maybe that if I don't bend to what other people want or desire, that if I stay within my own authenticity, that it means maybe I won't win. Mm-hmm. And for this, it was like, no, I stayed within my own authenticity and I still won. That's completely possible. And Cartier themselves, that judge is no longer there. What a wonderful gift that company is. And also what a wonderful gift they have given me that continues to give going forward. The impact that they're creating for these women's lives is incredible. So the company itself, set aside from that particular story, is doing such wonderful things. So that's something I definitely want to make sure that I add here.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. It's, wow. And just to be in your shoes and like the way you told the story, first of all, you're a great storyteller, but I know what you mean, where you are processing something so fast and you're trying to decide, am I going to, what would be the potential outcomes of me doing XYZ right now? And it's just happening, and you've got less than a second to decide, and it's just choose the brave move.
Yeah.
There's
never been a regret where I chose my own authenticity. I only regret when I know I didn't. Uh-huh. And no matter how scary those moments are, it's like, that's what we have. Like, that's what we can give the world, is our own authenticity.
Okay. Woo, I love it. You know what's coming up for me right now is what we were talking about right when we hopped on, and Katie and I were just doing like some personal catch up, and then I was like, whoa, hold up, we got to record this. So you said, you know, you've been through this kind of season of, growth and expansion lately, where you are questioning, would you be willing to let go of everything you think you know about yourself? And maybe I don't know that's exactly how you said it, but can you dive into that a little bit more and tell us what that means to you? And then also, if you don't bring up the rapping, you know I'm going to. So we got to get there too. People are like, rapping? What do you mean rapping? Yes.
Yes, rapping. So I write spoken word rap poetry, and what I really started learning through these raps as they come out, so I'll give a little context about them. It's not like I sit down every morning and I write. How these spoken words come out are, this one, I was in the shower and it's like I feel this pressure happen, and then it's like I need a pen and a piece of paper as quickly as possible. And I just start writing. And then after I'm complete is when I read what it is that I wrote. And I say that my lesson starts there. So the one that's been most impactful for me recently, and I'm happy to wrap it if you'd like.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Duh.
So versus even giving a little bit of context, I actually thought I'd just go straight into it, and then we can dive into whatever round we'd like to from it. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Bring it. Okay. All right, cool. So this spoken word is called "Have You Ever Wanted Something?" And I found it to be a very impactful exploration. So here's how it goes. Have you ever wanted something? Raise your hand. And if you're not raising your hand, you're probably not from this planet or a part of our genetic plan. Now, make a list and run through it in your head so you can identify all the aspects of your life that could be filled that are currently decrepit. Can you feel them? The wants, that is. Can you feel how they'll change your being to be more solid and reflective? You'll likely be more visible, more joyous and okay. I mean, that's what we're all seeking at the end of the day, isn't it? Let's feel them again. Think of one, the one at the top. You got it? Really feel it. Bring it in so close that you might even pop. They say if you can imagine something hard enough and hold on to it tight, it'll come true, bringing more abundance and delight. Won't it? If it won't, then why do we want it? Oh, I want deep. I can feel the well swirl up in me like a tsunami. And when I don't think it's coming, I go anxious and I feel into my anxiety. Like right now, I can feel it in the pit of my stomach. This yearning, hands out, pleading for. What exactly? Want. I'm saying it out loud. How many times does this sound ring through my being this loud? Do I know what I'm saying when I say this so proud? I lack. I'm scarce. I'm non-existent in this realm. I'm insufficient. I'm in a shortage. I'm in deficit. That's my compound. But wait, that's not what I mean. I desire to possess. That's what I actually deem. Meaning to have something belong to me. To own. To own as of a demon or spirit, especially an evil one, to have complete power over someone. Don't believe me? Look it up. When I want, I desire to possess, to own someone. Does this make sense? I want a horse. I take it from the wild. I lock it in a pen. I win its trust through patience and obedience. I convince it to follow me and listen to me. I show this being that I'm the source of its nutrition, supporting it to think it won't survive without my protection, that it would be lost in the wild without me guiding it some, leading it to safety, to water, to its liberation. I give it purpose and drive for the life it was given, never once realizing it was better off without my ambition. I convince myself that this is okay. This animal is better off with me guarding it. You see, I'm a hero. That's the picture I've painted of me so I can lock away a spirit for all of eternity. But love. I love this horse. I love this being. That's why I have them cradled in my space, you see. Cradled I think I'm protecting them. Is that another way I've convinced myself to this decree? It's not safe out there and they're safe with me. That's the subliminal message sent so often to convince thee. Big breath to that one, to think that we are lost without someone holding our hand to this pardon love. I think this is love, to take a free spirit and cage them in my lack of recognition of my own void that was created by me, that I don't realize is filled from within me. So I reach out and take what is not mine, then convince myself it's okay because I love them more. Love. Let's dive in. Based on this poem, I can see I've got it all ungrounded. Let me ask a question that a friend asked me, and let's just see how willing I am to dive into reality. Am I willing to be destroyed by love? I'll ask again. Am I willing to be destroyed by love? Would I be willing to destroy my reputation for love? And that's the end of that.
Oh, wow. How does that feel?
You know, when I first wrote this poem, I kind of smiled to myself and thought, is it okay to be intimidated by my own words? Because that's how I feel after reading this. And I've been on a journey with this one ever since, for about the past month and a half. And many ahas have come after exploring throughout this one. And one of which we were sort of touching on at the beginning of this call, which is, you know, to be destroyed by love and to destroy my reputation for love. You know, I say that I want to live in my life in my unbridled creativity, which means to be freely moved by my creativity, my own authenticity. And when I see this question of, would I be willing to destroy my reputation for love? And then I look at the reflection of what I thought love was. I opened myself up to this whole aspect of me that I was unaware of. Meaning, to possess or to own is, let's see, how do I explain this? Actually, I'll use the herd of horses as the metaphor again. I said, so what I can see, not only have I done to myself, but others in society have done to me too, is let's say that there's a herd of wild horses. And we are looking at this herd of wild horses, and they're all free. I mean, free to do whatever it is that they so desire at any given moment. And then we identify one of them. And it's like, look at that one, though. God, do you see how it's built? Perfectly built. That horse, it doesn't even know its unfulfilled potential. It doesn't even know. That horse, it would win awards. It would come out here and it would be the best jumper there is. Like there's this horse, it's not even living its life. So we go out there and we catch it. We bring it in. We put it in a pen. We win its trust through patience and obedience. We convince it that this is where the nutrition is. This is where the food is. This is the life. We give it purpose. We give it drive. We start impeding all of these things onto it. And then we convince ourselves that all of this is okay because it's out of love. And what I really got through this poem was that anytime I try to pin anything, anytime I try to bridle anything, and I try to convince myself that that's love, actually what I'm up to is there's some internal void within me that actually was created by me. And I'm trying to manipulate, control, and take ownership of something outside of me to fill it. And then I convince myself that's okay to do because I call it love. And what this poem is really showing me is that love, it's like, would I be willing to destroy my reputation for love? Would I be willing to be destroyed by love? And I think of Ellen DeGeneres. She's such a perfect example for this. And after I finished this poem, she really came to mind because that woman chose her own authenticity. She chose to love herself so deeply that she actually did destroy her reputation for doing so. Mm-hmm. And some people could say, oh, well, look at Ellen nowadays. And I'm like, but she didn't know that at the time. Mm-hmm. And that's an ultimate act of love, is to be willing to destroy the pin of which we put ourselves in and that we put others in. And what would life be like if everything was unbridled? I took myself out of the pen, and with that, I also released everyone and everything that's in my space as well to be free. That's actually the act of love. And one thing I was touching on earlier was that, you know, who I think I know to be, this question of destroying my love is asking myself, would I be willing to destroy everything I think I know to be true about me? And that includes both what I would judge as the good and the bad. See, oftentimes we have this yin yang, and there's aspects of our stuff that we would consider bad. We want to pick and choose. I want to destroy this aspect and this aspect, but this gets me somewhere in life. I don't want to destroy that one. But to recognize that for every yin, there is the opposite of the yang. So for every bad judging aspect of ourselves, there is a good one. You can't destroy one without destroying the other. So the true act of courage that we all have to ask ourselves is, would we be willing to destroy all of that? It's just made up. And then allow life to move through us unbridled with as little judgment of what that looks like. So full acceptance of our own authenticity and the imprint that will have into the world. It's a big question.
Mm-hmm. And is it okay to potentially exchange the word destroy for let go? The only reason why is I don't know, how does that feel to you?
So for me, the destroying aspect is it no longer exists versus letting go. It still exists. So it's like if I get in this boat and I start taking off from this island, the island, I know it's still there. There's still a potential to go back.
Gotcha.
And yeah, that might be a stepping stone for someone. So maybe they start with letting go. Mm-hmm. And I think that the ultimate acceptance would be to destroy it. Mm-hmm. So there is no going back. Mm-hmm. There is no option.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I couldn't say yes to this. I was just like, whew, because, you know, for me, I would really see is like, oh, wow, I'm really easy to destroy these aspects of me. But then when I really got that, I have to be willing to destroy all aspects of what I think I know to be true about me. Knowing that, is this the ambition of someone else to me? So somebody said, Katie, if you really focused, you could be a 5-goal polo player. And it's like, yes, and that's your ambition of me. Mm-hmm. So the question is, how many of my actions am I moving in the world today that are not even my own ambition? There's somebody else's ambition of me. And I've convinced myself to do it because that helps my likability, acceptability, and thought of being loved if I do. And then taking it away from even what others have given me, what ambition have I even instilled within myself that actually I created a pin for myself with that? Like I'm only allowing myself to move in this one space or this one path in life because I have not only taken somebody else's ambition, I've created my own internal ambition of myself. Mm-hmm. And then all of those are limiters.
Mm-hmm. Trapped.
We're still in a pin. We're still trapped, yet we call it love. So somebody might convince me that they're saying this to me and they're giving these things to me because they love me. Or I might even convince myself of this. And what this poem is saying is like, I don't know what love is. You call this love. This is not love.
And what's so cool about this is that you've just started writing, really, right? This has not like been your lifelong hobby or talent. It's it's always been in you. I mean, potentially.
No, if anything, I lived most of my life thinking I was a terrible writer because in ninth grade, I had a teacher fail me on a writing assignment. So then I avoided writing like the plague for many years until about 8 months ago. And I wanted to say thank you to Katie Hendricks. And I was like, oh, I could buy her a gift. And it just wasn't hitting home. And then I thought, well, I could write her a letter and snail mail it. And I was like, no, I've never been a good writer. And then I was laying down one day and I heard this, write her a rap. And I jumped up with excitement and outpoured the most amazing rap that incorporated all of her teachings and also for me conveyed the level of gratitude I felt inside toward the impact that she's had in my life. And that was the first one. And since then, I've probably written 15 that have just come out. And again, they don't come out because I sit down and write every morning or that I have this planned creativity time. It's just, I'll be moving in the world. And then there's this pressure that comes up and then I can feel the urge and I grab a pen and a piece of paper. And I made a commitment to myself that I would stop whatever I was doing to honor the creative flow. And that's, in my opinion, honoring this aspect of unbridled creativity. So feeling the momentum inside and then acting upon it.
And you're welcoming it back. You're making it, I mean, I imagine it surfaces more when you honor it. And it's a way to get it to keep coming back, right? Is to give it that attention. Like our creativity is craving our attention. And if we don't give it to it, then it's not going to come.
And our creativity is a reflection of what we have on the inside of us. So I'm in essence becoming my own teacher. So I don't know these words before they come out. I allow myself to be moved and then I see what I created. And that is when my learning begins.
Yes. Like the one about, but you won't. And so where can people follow more if they want to listen and learn and just absorb your creativity?
Yeah, I love that. So theluckiestwoman.com is where I'm going to start putting a lot of my writings on. And we're going to start doing I'm basically going to take some of these spoken words and wrap them in video form. And we're going to load those as well. And I expect that to come out in the next maybe month or so. So I would say just keep checking out theluckiestwoman.com. And a lot of what I've written and or will be in video form should be up on that site.
I can't wait.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
They're good ones. There are a lot of them are intense. And for me, it's the truth. So.
Right. And I appreciate that you will write these things. And then like for one that I'm just going to tease it because it's going to make people want to go to theluckiestwoman.com and find it someday soon. But you wrote it and you thought it wasn't about you, but then you tend to always realize, no, this is what you needed to hear. You're challenging yourself, and the "but you won't" was a challenge to yourself, but you won't. And so it's pretty rad that this is not from a place of preach. It's from a place of you're basically you're creating the solution to your own questions and answers to your own questions.
I often say that what we see out into the world, we tend to do the finger point outward. And the truest courageous step is to take that finger and turn it back toward ourselves to understand how is this coming from me? So with these raps, a lot of them they come out using the word you. So in this one, in the very beginning, when it first came out, all of the areas where you heard me say the word I started out with you. And sometimes that's the easiest way to see something is to see someone else doing it or to identify it outside of us. And the reality is, though, anything that we identify on the outside of us also resides on the inside of us. And the gift is when we're willing to own that. So these poems usually come out with the word you. And then I go through this progression with them and this learning, and then they transition themselves into the I. So I'll say, this is what you're doing. And then before it's over with, this is what I'm doing. So there's a radical ownership that happens. Yes.
And your creativity is the boss, right? Like it's almost like it seems like you're removed from it. It's channeling through you. It's coming out and you have to honor it, but it's your ego is kind of off to the side, maybe watching this happen. It's like when
Yes, I often say is like I'm taken over. So to really allow myself to be moved, and when I'm not allowing myself to be moved with my own life, I know that I'm trying to control some aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So humiliation, that one's a recent one. And what I realized was I was resisting feeling humiliation, the feeling of humiliation. Mm-hmm. So what I do is I subconsciously control and try to manipulate my environment to avoid feeling humiliated. Only to then realize that humiliation is a feeling that is inside of me. And anything inside of me will not hurt me. There's nothing inside of me that will hurt me, which means that the feeling of humiliation is a section of me. It's a part of me. And the internal war is when we resist any aspect of ourselves. And the likelihood that we're resisting based on a fear of a story we've made up about that is why we even resist. Oh. And so with that, I realized that resistance, like hold the resistance, that's often said in war terms, that if we resist any aspect of ourselves, we are our own internal war. And that and that our liberation is to make peace, which means acceptance and surrender of all of who we are. And the way through that is to destroy any story we think we know to be true about who we are. So that humiliation is bad and this is good. Boom, I just created a reason to resist an aspect of me.
I love that you brought this up, and I want to wrap up here in a minute, but it's that word humiliation and just the exercise of getting uncomfortable. And recently I've heard a couple of people talking about this, and I've been hearing voices lately too, which are amazing, and I'm honoring them because I want more. And it's basically, I think, just my soul trying to talk to myself or share something. Right on. And one of which is, I've heard Tim Ferriss say before that he will intentionally put himself and do things to humiliate himself to practice and to build that muscle more. So he doesn't resist it so much, which I thought was really interesting experiment. And sometimes it might be wearing something completely bizarre that you know is going to be, this eyesore to people, or at least get their attention, not in a positive way necessarily, and just own it and wear it, or go out and do something that isn't necessarily the norm. Say something in an elevator. I think that was Stephen Colbert recently. He will just go in an elevator and break out in song or do something. I can't remember how he phrased it, but so if we can exercise that muscle, because I heard this the other day, it just popped into mind. I was driving and it was basically a voice that said, getting uncomfortable is the gateway to everything you want. And I think about you on that stage at Cartier and that moment of bravery where you just wanted to honor yourself. That's what you wanted. Of course, winning the competition would have been nice, but nope, that wasn't really what you wanted. You wanted to be authentic, and you were willing to be that uncomfortable that you might have been asked to leave within 2 minutes.
I was willing to destroy my reputation.
Yeah.
But, yes. It's saying that, practicing the muscle, it's like going through it to get to the other side to realize I'm okay. Because the fear has it set up to where it's life or death.
Oh, yeah.
And to actually experience humiliation, meaning like to feel it and then be on the other side of it is like, oh, I'm still here. That was, I don't even feel in pain. What was so difficult about that? Like, right. The fear I have about the story of what humiliation means, not actually the feeling itself.
Right. The story. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your time, your wisdom, your creativity, and actually performing for us too. It's really, I think, refreshing and inspiring to know that this has been coming out of you recently, that this is what happens when you honor that unbridled creativity, philosophy. And so imagine, everyone listening, imagine what's in you. And gosh, I can't wait to see more of your art make it to the surface.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me on. It was fun. It was really fun.
Absolutely. And just one more little plug, theluckiestwoman.com. And Instagram, are you planning to share on social at all, where a lot of these listeners are?
Yeah, Instagram. There will likely be The Luckiest Woman Instagram. And then my personal Instagram is KatieAnn44. So there will probably be plugs on there as well. And then my companies have social too, Save Watts Co. and Save Water Co. Those are out there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?